beautiful soul. My name is Chelsea. I'm an intuitive wellness coach, and I wanted to talk today about some of the more complex chronic health issues and some of the energetics around that. So a lot of the work that I did in learning about this came when I did a mentorship essentially in 2014, and I was able to use energetic testing modalities and equipment and kind of test different ideas, discerning different things about people's bodies, using different frequency devices, figuring out patterns and themes. And something that really struck me was almost everybody, actually, let me take that back. Every single person that I ever tested for something called Lyme disease. And I'm using quotations because it's a whole thing in itself, but really it should be tick-borne infections or other chronic infections. But there's a collection of bacterial, viral, parasitic infections that is known as Lyme disease, even though it's mostly attributed to one bacteria. Every single person that I tested energetically had one of the components of this disease or illness, infection. Yet not everyone had symptoms. And for some people, it would show up, but it was, not really showing up as a major problem. And so I started to think, okay, it's not specifically this bacteria or collection of bacteria that is inherently the problem. There must be something else going on. And that's when I started to really look into terrain theory. And I kind of came across it by accident through that observation. I didn't know it was an actual theory that basically there are some who believe that it's not actually the germ that's creating the problem. It's basically a cascade of physiological functional issues in the body that sets up the terrain for that infection to be a problem. So you can think of it this way. If you've got a pond and it's a clean pond, everything's moving and flowing nicely, there's going to be nice oxygen flowing into that, the fish in that pond are going to be really happy and healthy. Now, let's say you close down that system a little bit. Things start getting a bit more sluggish. There's not as much oxygen. The fish aren't doing very well. There's bugs and scum and algae and stuff is accumulating. That's not going to lead to a healthy system overall. So how do you address that? Do you just swap new fish into the pond? No, because they're going to succumb to the same fate as the ones who are there in that already. So what you do is you have to figure out how to drain, clean, get the pond moving, flushing things through, get that oxygen in there. And so our bodies are pretty similar. We need to have drainage and movement of fluid and toxins, and we need to have an influx of oxygen in the system. If we're not doing that, it's allowing things to kind of accumulate. So that's a helpful theory and an approach to kind of think about your health overall. But I want to specifically talk about these more chronic, complex issues. I personally was one of the people who tested for pretty much everything that could come up, at least energetically. And my physical symptoms showed it. I was having chronic fatigue issues at that time, chronic headaches, issues with my period. I had major, severe cystic acne at the time. My gut was a mess. Basically, everything functionally was a struggle. And I started to kind of clean up different aspects. But the ones that really struck me were when I was able to delve into the energetics, what was behind why some people really have a harder time versus others. It was interesting to note that I kept coming up with these different emotions of shame, of guilt, themes of burden, which read from current experiences as well as past lifetime experiences. And so if someone had an accumulation of all of this energy and information on the energetic, it seemed to me that it anchored in these physical issues much more easily. And that's something we touch on in Body Connection Blueprint, which is my course that kind of condenses down all of my learnings and teachings for clients and myself in a timeline that's self-guided, that you take yourself through. And I thought it was so important to allow people to have access to this information, because I don't see it anywhere where we're talking about the emotional and energetic, the accumulation of information from past lives coming forward into the current body. And we have to remember we did choose these bodies that we're in. These are our vessels to experience different situations. We talked about the soul collective and working through things with a group of souls, different themes, maybe doing different role reversals, but essentially we chose this body, this experience. And we also chose, to at least some degree, the physical manifestations of what we're coming up with. And it's important also to remember that the physical symptoms are messengers. So it's not that it's something that we need to attack and fight. That often gets us more resistance energy. But can we approach the physical symptoms as something to learn and delve deeper about? Can we have the faith and the trust to move forward and peel off some of the layers of what this actually means? I want to talk about some of these specific things as well. So some of the lesser known things that may be tripping up the physical body. So we have meridian systems in the body, and they're energetic pathways or lines. So these need to be flowing and free, just like that pond scenario we talked about. If there's blocks or stagnation there, then it's going to start accumulating information and create denser areas and physical symptoms. The teeth, dental, is really important with this because it aligns with the energetic meridians. So a lot of people may have dental issues where there's infection, hidden infection, root canals is one of those big things, or a lot of toxic metals, and they're along those meridian lines. Now, this doesn't mean that you go out and start addressing all of this stuff, because sometimes it can be made worse. You need to have qualified professionals dealing with this, but it's something to think about, that if there's a lot of toxicity and information in the mouth and it's along certain meridians, then you may want to be addressing the energetics at least behind that, or the energetics first to loosen up the toxicity, make it easier for the body to handle the actual physical issues with supplements or procedures to rectify that. I hope that makes sense, but I just felt called to share that piece of information. Just seeing if there's anything else in this one. No, I think the main thing that I want you to remember is your body is a divine vessel of your choice, of your choosing, and that there can be really complex, seemingly really uncomfortable things going on. But it doesn't mean that it's going to be your forever and always. It's just a current state based on accumulation of information. And you can absolutely clear that information bit by bit, and you will improve. Till next time, be well and take care of yourself.